we'll officially start. And again, we are started. Okay, so hello, museum families, and welcome to the Royal BC Museum. Welcome to the RBCM at Home Kids play date through screens across British Columbia and the world. The previous sessions are recorded. I think we're on session 6 now, and you can find them on our Royal BC Museum YouTube page. My name's Chris O'Connor, and I'm a museum educator in the learning department at the Royal BC Museum. The Royal BC Museum, the museum, my home, is on, and Jana, your home too. I was going to ask you where exactly you live in the city. Is on the territory of the Lekwungen speaking peoples, also known as the Songhees and Esquimalt nations, here in Victoria on Vancouver Island. So outside my window, the trees are getting greener, the bees are getting more active, the smells of cut grass more intense. Though most of us have been asked to stay at home and be patient, and we're all doing a really great job with that, nature around us is definitely on the move. So today we'll be looking at some of those changes and see how we can record them on a phenology wheel. A phenology is a fancy word that means the study of the changes in nature. But first I wanted to come back to our session from last week. So we made many dioramas with Megan Anderson. And it was a pleasure to see all the amazing dioramas sent in. So I wanted to share that right here. So Royal BC Museum at Home Kids. And this is a program, actually, I always go past this slide, but this is a program that we did during this last few months before we temporarily closed with early learners. And we made these binoculars and looked around the museum. And this, I love this image in particular from that session. So these are some of the dioramas from last week. An incredible diversity of dioramas. Again, dioramas are like an immersive environment that give a sense of maybe nature or other kind of lived environments using lots of different materials. So you'll see, I noticed there's a few hippos, there's a flying horse, there are lots of things that are hanging, there's nature materials, so just so lovely to see all the different kinds of dioramas that people made. So we're going to be making more today, so please share that with us. So you can send that directly to me through my email, so coconnor@royalbcmuseum.bc.ca, or through our social media channels, so at Royal BC Museum or hashtag RBCM Kids. We've just started that hashtag, so slowly sort of building things that are within that hashtag. After this session, keep exploring with us. So we have a learning portal, which is a really fun, interactive digital platform for learning. You can Google Learning Portal and Royal BC Museum and you'll find it. There's lots of different things to explore while there. And then just to let you know, next week, we have a returning guest, our first ever guest on RBCM at Home Kids, so Dr. Victoria Arbour. And we're gonna be looking at dinosaur footprints. So that's next week, next Wednesday. So I'm gonna stop sharing there. And so, I want to give a little heads up first. So in this format, we're doing a webinar. Some of you been maybe at home, you've been doing meetings through Zoom or Facebook Live. So this is a webinar. So you'll be able to see me, I'm the host, Chris, and our special guest. Today, that's Jana. Hello, Jana. But we can't see you, but we could hear from you if you use the Q&A box, if you want to ask questions, or the comment section if you're watching on Facebook Live. And our colleague, Wes, is on Facebook Live right now, and he'll be able to shoot us over those questions that you have from Facebook Live. So ask questions as we go along, and heads up, we'll be drawing today. So make sure that you have paper and something to draw with, like colored pencils, markers, crayons, even just a pencil is fine, anything will work. And we are recording this session, so if you need to take a break or you need more time, you can just play it again. We'll have that up later today on our YouTube page. And the most important thing these days is just to be good to yourself and good to others during this time. So do things at your own pace. So let's meet our special guest for today. So today's special guest is Jana Stefan. I mentioned last week that Megan was one of the most creative people at the museum, and the same could be said for Jana, which makes sense because they both work in the exhibit arts department at the Royal BC Museum. In fact, Jana manages the team of artists at the museum, and she can do an incredible amount of things. I'm constantly impressed by Jana. She's crafty, she's smart, she's kind, and she's with us today. So hello, Jana.
I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for asking me.
I have one question first. So what's the strangest thing that you've ever made during your time at the museum?
I think we had to make a bunch of little like larval grub things one time for an invasive species exhibit, and I had to sculpt a slug one time. So it was kind of fun, you know, studying really closely what slug anatomy looks like. Yeah, I think pushy things are all a little weird. Yeah.
Which leads in nicely to what we're going to do today. So I explained a little bit of what a phenology wheel is, or what phenology is, but can you explain a little bit further what we're up to, and then you can get right into it.
Yeah, so today I'll just do a really quick introduction to what phenology is, and talk about why it's important or fun to do, and what purpose it serves. And then we'll look at some examples, and then we'll draw our own, and we'll make some observations of the natural world around us. And don't worry if you don't have natural world around you. There's things in everybody's house that you can observe, and I brought some plants from my own garden for people that might not have access to outside right now. So yeah, so like Chris said, phenology is basically what we observe happening around us in the natural world at any time. So that's plants. They might have, you know, new leaves emerging, or they're flowering, or they're going to seed. Animals might be getting ready for hibernation, or eggs might be hatching, or you might see birds overhead migrating. And it also includes weather. So what the weather is doing today, what temperatures every day are, conditions like that.
So Jana, I'm just going to jump in just for a second. If you can speak up just a little bit.
Yep.
Great, thanks.
So observing all of those things is one part of phenology. The second part is recording them. And so that's the second part of what we're going to be doing today. And we're going to be recording them on what's called a phenology wheel. I've got an example of one that I just started behind me. So basically it's a circle that's divided into different sections, and that can be any length of time. This one is month by month, but you can do it for a whole year or even a day. This is a really flexible format. So we're just doing one little example today, and if you like it, there's a whole world you can get into of recording phenological observations. And wheels is just one type of that. So yeah, so people understand why observing the natural world is so important. Obviously for our own enjoyment and our own understanding, and to develop a closer bond to sort of the ecosystem immediately around us. But also people use it in really practical ways. Farmers and gardeners, you know, it's not just April 1st, time to put these seeds in the ground. There's lots of old lore attached to it. So wait for the forsythia to bloom before you plant your peas. And lots of indigenous people, most of their traditional knowledge is based on phenology observations over centuries, millennia. So the Comox people, for example, would wait until ocean spray blooms before they start digging up butter clams. So it's just a great way to learn the relationships between different species in nature. And it's also really important now because it can be used as a tool for observing and maybe tracking the arrival of an invasive species, for example, or for noting changes in the natural world that perhaps correlate with changes to climate. So yeah, so that's phenology in a nutwheel. And yeah, so why, not why, but I'll show you another couple examples and then we'll get started drawing our own. So here's another wheel that I did for April. And so you can see on this one, I made a bunch of observations, including like, this one's pretty complicated. It's got moon cycle. I have what seeds I planted in my vegetable garden that day. I also note what plants are flowering. I note when I see any other species showing up. So when I saw the first deer fawns this year and the first pollinators, flies and bees. Right now I'm seeing a bunch of little winter moth caterpillars coming out. And then this one's got some general weather observations as well. They don't have to be so. Go ahead.
Jana, just jumping in for a second, just to clarify. So you're just showing the different ways. You're not asking anyone to draw yet.
We're not doing anything just yet. I just want to show people what's possible. And
Great.
So that kids of different ages can see that you can skew it to be as complicated or as simple as possible. For example, a 4-year-old in my house drew this one. So this has, it's just 4 sections for the 4 weeks of April, and we had the moon with some craters, and this is the Lochside Trail with some skunk cabbage, and these are the baby ducklings that our neighbors got. So just so people have an example of what we're doing. So that said, let's start drawing. So like Chris said, you need some paper and something to draw with. There's a few more examples of how your wheel might look. And if you get into this, you can go online and there's tons of templates available if you don't want to make your own. But this is also a great way to involve some geometry and use a compass and a protractor if you want to get into that part. Today, we're just going to do a simple one. I thought we would draw a circle and divide it into 4 quadrants, and that can be the month of May. And you can make observations and draw some things for each month. So today we're just going to do one little pie wedge and get started with that, and then you can continue to add to this as the month goes on. So if you have something circular to trace, like a plate or a jar, something as big as possible on your paper so you've got lots of space to draw, that would be great. I cut myself out a template because my plates were pretty heavy to do here. So let's just start by drawing a circle. And then I think maybe today, and I'm just going to freehand because I've got a little bit of tracing here to guide me. A thing that's really useful is to put a center point, just so you know where you are. And I'm just going to draw another smaller circle right in the middle. And again, there's no right or wrong. You can draw as many or as few divisions in this circle as you would like. So I'm going to draw one in the middle, and that's where I'm going to sort of draw what month it is. And then let's do maybe one more sort of here. You know, bullseye-ish, almost round. I'm sure yours are as good as mine. And then we're just going to draw 2 straight lines across it in a T. So I'm not going to go through this center part. You can if you want to. It doesn't really matter. So that's sort of our framework. And I'm going to do one other thing. Again, you can do it if you want to or not. I'm going to take this outer ring and I'm going to divide it into 8 sections, and that's where I'm going to be, where I record the weather of every day this week. So it's kind of nice. I know a week only has 7 days, but to get the whole month of May, 2 of these have to have 8 and 2 have to have, actually 3 have to have 8 and 1 have to have 7. So again, you can worry about that later, but if you want to divide this up, you can do that now. So we have our framework, and now we need to fill it. So, but in order to fill it, we have to decide what we're going to fill it with, and we have to make our observations. So if you have a yard that you're able to go out in, or even just a balcony or a window that you can look out and see what trees, other plants and animals might be out there. If there's a walk you do regularly in your neighborhood, one thing that's really good with Phenology wheels is to always make your observations in the same location so that you can actually see the changes that are happening. And it's not just visual. So, you know, I'm looking at everything when I'm looking at my garden, and I'm lucky that I have a big garden. But I know that everybody doesn't. And so, like I said, even if you can't get outside, if you have pets, you know, something you might notice about them is when it's, you know, in the fall, they're getting a thicker coat, or they might like to be out more in the spring when, if you have a cat that hunts rodents, for example, and the rodents are really out. If you have house plants that are putting out new leaves right now, or even just a change in what produce is available at the grocery store. So you can make observations about any part of the natural life, no matter how removed from nature it might seem. But like I was saying, it's not, you don't need to restrict yourself to your eyes, use all your senses. What do you hear? You know, do you hear birds calling or thunder happening? Can you smell the lilac bloom right now in my yard? It's beautiful, the smell of lilac. Can you touch different textures of tree bark? Or, you know, some plants are quite fuzzy in their leaves and others are sticky. So there's all kinds of observations you can make. So for people that are able to look outside right now, maybe check it out, see what's happening out there. For people that aren't able, I brought a few things in from my garden. So if you don't have anything to draw offhand, you can check some things out. So just a few flowers that people might be interested in blooming right now. That's an anemone. And I've got, here's a little chive bud, and then here's one that's already opened up and flowered. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start drawing in here some of the things that are happening this week in May. And so I'll draw some plants in here. So if you want to start drawing that now, you can. I'll keep showing some flowers. And then, like I said, this is where I'm going to record the weather this week. So yesterday was pretty sunny. So I'll maybe start with putting a big sun in here. And I'll color it yellow because I can. You probably won't be able to see that. And today, I think it's too changeable to call it just yet. It's windy, it's cloudy, it's sunny, it's doing everything. So I'm not going to commit to my weather for today just yet.
But like, for example, Jana, someone from Kelowna was saying that it's a rainy day in Kelowna. So maybe that they would put rain. Exactly.
And if there's anybody joining us who might be in a place where there's very little spring growth happening yet because it's still so cold, maybe from the northern part of the province, we'll give you some cheater stuff to look at. So maybe just a couple other things if people want to see. I've got a nice fern frond that's just starting to open up here. I think this is an ostrich fern, but I'm not sure. But so in a couple days, it will look like that. So, you know, last week I drew a bunch of these, and then maybe today I'm going to draw a bunch more of the actual opened up ones because that's what the ferns are doing right now. And lastly, I'll just show camas flower because I live in a Garry Oak meadow, luckily, and so I have a lot of camas right now. And this is a great thing to talk about because it's some of the observations you can make. So I noticed today that almost all of the pollen from the camas is gone, and I thought, oh great, the bees have gotten it, but it was really windy last night, so it might have just been the wind, I'm not sure. I've also noticed that over over the last few years that my camas blooms at least a week later than the camas across the street from me because we're in a shadier location. And the other cool thing about camas is it gets these great seed pods that are green and very textural. And then as they start to dry out, they're really great little rattles. And so, and then when they open to disperse their seeds. So those are just examples of observations you can make. So I think for today, I'm going to, again, because I usually draw some kind of moon stuff happening, and because we're lucky the full moon is tomorrow, I'm going to draw an almost full moon on mine. So if you're into the moon, you can do that. The full ones are easier to draw. So let's put a moon and some craters maybe. And then the other cool thing that's happening in my area right now is I have a robin is building a nest right outside my office window. It did it last year as well. And she's sitting on eggs right now. I'm not sure, I haven't checked today, so I don't know if they've hatched yet. So I'm gonna draw a little nest with some robin's eggs in it. So again, if you're looking out your window and you're noticing the trees have a bunch of leaves coming out, you could be drawing those. And you don't have to draw, you can write a list of things. You can also do collage. So you could cut out, you know, pictures from a magazine, or the other thing that I've done before is cut out the pictures from my seed packets and make a big sort of collage of what I've planted and then harvested from my garden. I've seen Phenology wheels that are embroidered, and people do like flip books and all kinds of cool formats. Yeah. So, and the other thing I had wanted to get one ready for today, but I didn't, is I've also wanted to do some pressed plants in them, because that would be really cool to press some flowers and leaves from my actual garden and then put them in. But while I'm speaking about that, everything you've seen harvested today is from my own garden. Please don't pick wildflowers from parks or other natural areas. They're there, those areas need the seeds. And that's why being a good observer is so important, because you can do some sketches or make some notes or take lots of pictures and then come home and add it to your wheel. Photographs is another great idea. Even if you take a picture of the same location every day for a month or a year, that's a great way to get a snapshot of what's happening in that little corner of the world. So yeah, so I'm gonna work on finishing out this bird nest maybe.
I would imagine, Jana, that if you're making those observations like the bird nest, then, and you're drawing that on there, it will encourage you to keep looking and go back the next day. So there's like a real advantage to be able to have that kind of close observation.
It is, and you can, and if I was to write down what day those eggs hatched, then next year, if these robins come back, because I think these are the same ones that were here last year, I'm not sure, you know, I can see, oh, they're earlier this year or later this year, and if I'm able to count how many chicks there are, you know, it's just nice to be able to record those changes year to year, and you really do get familiar with your environment, which is really great. So I'm gonna put some blue robin's eggs in there. And I think the other thing I'm going to draw today is the other type of garden I have is a big vegetable garden. And I've got all kinds of stuff right now. I did a quick count when I went out this morning. I have 38 non-native species in flower right now. I think I have 11 native species flowering, and I have 16 native species flowering and 11 different kinds of fruits and vegetables that I'm harvesting. So I've got some rainbow chard here. If people want to go down the veggie route, I've still got a few little asparagus coming out. These are great to draw and also snack on. Of course, rhubarb is one thing that's always, you know, pretty plentiful in gardens right now. Also great. I grow red rhubarb, but some people have green. And then just lastly, here's some kale that overwintered from last year. So it has already put up its flowers and is just starting to do seed pods now. So not everything in spring is right at the beginning of life. This is something that's it's a biennial, so it's in its second year, and it's now starting to set seed and sort of go towards the end of its life. So my pea shoots are going crazy right now. So I'm going to draw some pea shoots on my Phenology wheel. And I love the little tendrils with their little curly cues that grab onto everything. So maybe I'll just draw some of those coming up here. Now it's tentacle. And then they've got those nice sort of rounded leaves. Not my best pea leaves, but that's okay. And so this is just a really quick snapshot of what's happening around me right now. On the one I showed you earlier, that's 12 months of the year. I wonder where that went. I've just chosen one species for each month. So for March, I did satin flower, and then April, I did pink fawn lilies, which are a lovely little native flower. And then for May, I did a camas meadow. And that's the other thing about making your Phenology wheels or books or whatever you're doing, is you don't have to record everything around you. You can just pick a single species and follow it, you know, through its life cycle and see what it's doing every week. Again, the opportunities are endless, and it scales really well for families because you don't even need to be so detailed. You can just be making general seasonal observations. And a great way to get into it is to think about your birthday. So what happens outside the door on your birthday? And I'm lucky that some of my favorite flowers are always flowering around my birthday at the end of April, those pink fawn lilies. But it's a great way to tie the season and the time of year to a specific date that you know.
And Jana, we have about five or so minutes. We have a question about the center circle. What goes in the center?
So on this one today,
or what can go in the center?
Anything can go in there. If for May, for example, maybe I'd be tempted to draw some camas in there because it's a great indicator species for May in my area. But I'm literally just going to write May, and I'm going to put 2020 because if I keep this till next year, it's important to know what year, right? So you want to have some way of marking the time, so I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to write May, but you can, draw something, or you can write. And some people do write in like actual, species names or a high and low temperatures for the day, or just, observations in general. So again, I'm just introducing the idea to you and saying that, we're just giving you a very, very brief intro, and you can take it from here and go as far as you want with it.
And I forgot to mention in the beginning, but my kid does the signs for RBCM at home kids each week, which I'm really thankful for them for doing that. But here's the one that they made, which is kind of like a version of just the seasons, looking at the seasons. So there's lots of different ways to do this, and it seems like, Jana, that the main thing is really about observation and how best to observe and then record those observations.
Exactly. And so it's hard to observe when we're inside looking at a screen. And so that's why I tried to bring a few things with me today. But I would urge you all, as soon as this session is over, to put down your stuff, get outside if you can, check things out, or at least, bookmark it for the next time you're on a walk. Bring a little notebook or bring your camera and make your observations. And then you can come back to this wheel, or you can start a whole new one and really run with it. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is an interesting question. Do we observe it I think it's over hours or days? So I guess it's like, that's a good question, is if you're observing your backyard, do you observe it like over 10 minutes, or like every morning, or because each time of the day will be a little different too? And that's, I guess, the advantage of a Phenology wheel, is you can make those decisions.
You can make it whatever you want. You could make a wheel that's just a single day, right? A single plant in a single day. I grow hop vines, and they'll grow as much as 12 inches in a day. So if I went out for a whole day, I could draw, like this progression of gradually bigger and bigger hop vines. So you can, the amount of time is whatever you want to put on it is the answer.
And I've seen some very kind notes about my kid and the way that they draw. So thank you for that. But it's not about one of the also great things about Phenology Wheels. It's not about being good at drawing, because it's not about good or not. It's just about observation and how you're putting those observations down on the paper. So.
And I find the ones where my drawing is really sketchy or I'm just taking notes, those are way better records than the ones where I take all the time and draw all the moon cycles. And, you know, like those ones look really beautiful at the end, but I don't quite always get as much out of the ones where I find I'm just a bit sketchier and trying to sort of take in more information. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so I imagine, like, I'm really curious to see what people come up with. So where in past times, people will send their artwork right away. Feel free to, you can send it anytime during the week, because you'll want to make some observations. But I'm really looking forward to seeing what people come up with. We had a question, Jana, earlier, is, do you enjoy your job? It's a good question.
I enjoy my job a lot more when I'm actually at the museum.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love my job. I have a great job. Working in the exhibits department is a lot of fun, and it's really challenging. And we get to be really creative, but we also get to solve a lot of problems, and I work with a great team. So yeah, no, I love it. Yeah.
How did you find yourself, in the last minute or two, how did you find yourself at the museum? What was your journey from being a creative person to working in a museum?
So I studied first as an artist and an art historian, and then I actually trained as an art conservator. And I started at the museum in the conservation department, and then slowly made my way over to exhibits, again, just because I had that art background. And a lot of on-the-job learning happens because we're all asked to do things that, you know, you can't just Google how do you build a mammoth. You know, we sort of have to figure it out as we go. But that was my path. A lot of other exhibit staff come from industrial design or carpentry backgrounds or fine arts backgrounds. Great.
Well, thank you so much, Jana. We'll stop the Facebook Live recording and the Zoom recording. There's one just went, and I think